Now look at this. In this endgame, you have to secure and make your king side have an extra space, because this black king could not leave this pawn and capture all of these pawns, because once the white king could go to a6, capturing that pawn and this pawn will promote to queen, he is losing. That is why black will force to capture that pawn in g4, and after pawn takes, black is now waiting to be defeated. That is why black will just wait and play king to c4. And now, did you know what makes white win? It's because of this extra space placing that pawn to g5. Black here still can capture that pawn because the white king could just capture and promote this pawn. That's why he will not live in the squares. King now in c5, king now in a6. If he take, he will also take. But here, king to c4, king takes pawn, and after king now captures the b5 pawn, this king will now help capturing that pawn, king to b7, king now in c5, and after king to c7, this position will force the black to push his pawn in e5. It is because after, for example, if he play king here in d5, then there is king now in d7. He cannot defend this pawn and sure to play here king to e4, and that is losing because after that king takes, king captures this pawn, and now king here in f6. White is surely winning after capturing that pawn and promote that pawn in g8. That is why in this position, after king here in d7, for example, if he push that pawn, now there is what we call the breakthrough. Pushing that pawn, if he takes that pawn, then this pawn will promote. That is why in this position, after king here, he did not play king to d5, but instead automatically he played pawn now to e5, and here white did not capture that pawn, but instead he pushed that pawn for a breakthrough, because once the black pushed that pawn, we have now f6, and the advantage is we can push that pawn, hitting his king by check, and we are surely winning. That is why in this position, he should not push that pawn but take this, but still there's no cure because of the pawn push, and after that series of moves, very sure that white is winning in this position.